the Doster Award. The Bill Doster Distinguished Service Award honors individuals who during at least 5 years of membership have provided distinguished service to TYCA Southeast or SCETC. The winner of the Bill Doster Award receives a plaque and lifetime membership in TYCA Southeast. Nominees cannot be current or elected or appointed members of the REC. Current elected or appointed REC members cannot nominate candidates for the Doster Award. For 2016, the Doster Award winner is Ms. Beverly Fatherree. Go ahead. After more than 30 years of teaching at Hines Community College, Beverly Fatherree retired in 2015. At the time, she had won teaching awards from TYCA Southeast, Hines, and TYCAM. Her commitment to education was and is legendary. Equally impressive is Bev's work with TYCA Southeast. She has dedicated many years of service to the executive committee and has dedicated many years to traveling to NCTE, 4Cs conferences, and as a recruiter for TYCA Southeast. Without further ado, please let's give a round of applause to the 2016 Doster Award winner, Beverly Fatherree.
That's a big step in heels, I'm sorry. Some of the things that Thad said reminded me of teaching experiences when he said people shut up when you say you're an English teacher. When I was between husbands, on occasion went out with friends, and in that sort of setting, you never just offered that you were an English teacher. And if somebody asked me what I did, I would maybe say a teacher, think maybe they thought I was math or something else. And anyway, I was dancing with this fella, and we were talking, we had a nice little conversation. And, after 10 minutes or so, he said, "Now, I believe you said you was an English teacher." And I said, "Well, no, actually, I did not say that. I said, I did say I was a teacher. I am, in fact, an English teacher. How did you know that?" And he said, "Well, a little while ago, you said sneaked instead of snuck. And nobody says that without thinking about it a long time, unless they're an English teacher." So the next time I went out, I said snuck about 15 times. First, I want to say how humbled and honored I am to win the Doster Award. I have to say I was surprised when Tim called me. I had the opportunity to meet Bill Doster years ago. He was a delightful, gregarious, energetic man who was a force in and of himself. And of course, I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing his daughter, Sandy Maya, over the years. And if he had done nothing else in his life but produce Sandy, he would be ahead of the game. So he was a wonderful man. This award honors service, which can sometimes be rather confusing. And I say that because sometimes service gets a bit of a negative connotation. For instance, people who run afoul of the law, there's community service as punishment. I can't imagine that all those folks in the striped jumpsuits that you see on the side of the highway picking up trash are doing so in the true spirit of service. Another area that offers service is student organizations. Our students at Phi Theta Kappa, for instance, have to have a certain number of service hours in order to get that honor cord to wear for graduation. Some of them, I'm sure, are terribly serious about their service, but others, I think, are doing their chores a little perfunctorily. And that last semester of sophomore year, before they're getting ready to graduate, you see them out looking for any kind of service, anything that they can count so they can get that honor cord. Eudora Welty has a short story about that very thing, A Visit of Charity, in which there's a little campfire girl named Marion who needs some service points to get a particular badge that she wants. So she's on her way to an old ladies' home, and there was an old ladies' home in Jackson, back in the day. She's on her way to the old ladies' home to visit some old ladies, and she can get 3-point service for that. She can get an extra point if she takes a plant, and she can double her score if she takes a Bible and reads to the old ladies. Well, Marion has a plant, but she drew the line at the Bible. So she's on her way to the old ladies' home, and what we see follow is a very sad tale about the situation the old ladies are in, these 2 old ladies that she ends up with. And then the sort of sad state of Marion's heart of hearts as well. Neither one is very pretty. Then there's the question about whether or not service, good works, can help get you into heaven. The Puritans believed that only grace would get you into heaven. Well, I'm a believer in good works as well, that they will help too. I taught the Puritans for years because I had no choice. When I taught American Lit, I found them as something I had to get through to get to the good stuff. But I did my best to make them seem more human and less stodgy. I milked poor old Anne Bradstreet's love for her husband and her marginally feminine statements in the prologue for all they were worth during that time, trying to say that Puritan women really did think, more than we realize. When I taught William Bradford, I pointed out the glee on Plymouth Plantation that he has when the shipman who mocks the Puritans on the way over and says, you'll be the first one I throw overboard, is in fact the first one who dies and is thrown overboard. And Bradford tells us that God smote him. And he has a little bit of unchristian glee in his heart. But, of course, we all, are happy when we can seek revenge on someone who has done something to us. My favorite Bradford work, I didn't run this by Susan Slavics, but I'm going to tell it anyway. My favorite Bradford work from his history is The Horrible Case of Bestiality, which I also gave out to my students to kind of get a little excitement in the room when we did Bradford. And of course that's about poor Thomas Granger, who has gone down in history as being executed for having unnatural relations with assorted farm animals. If I can't get a chuckle out of them by the time I read the list of the farm animals, who were also put to death, by the way, a mare, a cow, 2 goats, 5 sheep, 2 calves, and wait for it, a turkey, then there's nothing I can do with them. I mean, the semester is lost at that point. I do also tell them that Thomas, as he stood on the gallows, had to identify the farm animals as they were, paraded in front of him and say, yeah, it was that one, I recognize him. And there were a couple of sheep that he couldn't positively identify. So they got off. And you can take that however you want. I put that in the I don't believe I'd have told that category. But Bradford, of course, says that the truth of the history requires. But I digress. Back to the Puritans and good works. So all those years that I taught the Puritans, I had a colleague who would argue with me about whether or not good works would get you to heaven. And, it was a well-known fact in the department that if I had done something or said something that I felt I needed to do a little penance for, a pan of brownies or a bowl of pasta salad or, some treat would end up in the break room. And somebody invariably would say, wonder what Bev's done now, because that was my good work for my penance. And my friend would say every time, you know that's not going to work. And so, we had this ongoing conversation. Well, one day I had done a presentation for the library, I think it was National Library Week. And after the presentation, I was in my office working, and everybody else in our suite had gone. And here she came down to my office, and she walked in and she said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." She shut the door, she sat down, and she said, "I hope this won't offend you." Well, you know what that means. I mean, if somebody starts off that way, you're bound to be offended. You can just wait for it. And she went on to say then, "You have so many gifts." And I thought, well, I'm not offended by that. I kind of like that. And she said, "I just wish you would use them to the good." and so I said, well, I don't quite know how to take that, because I think I do use them to the good. I mean, I'm a teacher, I get up in front of the class, I'm engaging these students, I'm not doing it for the money. I do presentations for cookies, I don't charge people for that kind of thing, and I kind of think I'm using my gifts to the good. She said, "Oh no, you could do so much more." So I laughed and I said, "I know what your problem is." I said, "You're just afraid you'll get to heaven and I won't be there and it won't be any fun." So that was the last time we had that conversation. And she moved on. What does that have to do with TYCA Southeast? What will good works get you if you give your service to TYCA Southeast? Well, maybe tenure. If your school requires that you have a leadership position in an organization. Maybe if you do a presentation or you serve on a committee, your school will pay for you to come to the conference. And then, of course, there's always this lovely award that will get you if you serve TYCA Southeast. But it'll get you much, much more if you let it. So let me take you down a little trip down memory lane, and I'll tell you what my rewards are for serving TYCA Southeast. When I went to my first conference in 1981, and I don't want any eyes rolling out there for you people who were not born in 1981. It was my first year of teaching. I was brand new to the profession, and I went because I was told I was going. My colleagues, Nellie Pickett and Laster, some of the big names then said, "There's this conference on the coast and you're going." Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, Gay School was hosting, and one of my colleagues, Ray Shepard, was winning the first ever Cowan Award. So we were going to support her in that endeavor. I made arrangements for my mother to help with my 2-year-old and 5-year-old, and I piled up in the car with Betty Furstenberger and Retta Porter and Polly Marshall and way too many clothes, as I always do, and off I went. And my professional life at that point, such as it was transformed. TYCA Southeast, or SCETC, Southeastern Conference of English, and the 2-year college became my professional home. For the next 35 years, that's the place I want to be every February. I've attended other conferences, good conferences like 4Cs, NCTE, MLA. I've met wonderful people like Carolyn Calhoun Delahunt and Andy Anderson and Eva Payne and our lovely Cheryl back there in the back, and had a wonderful time. But at the end of every one of those conferences, I clicked my little ruby slippers together and I said, "There's no place like home." And for me, home is TYCA Southeast. At that first conference, I went to programs that informed me about areas that I didn't even know people taught, but one day I would be teaching, and I was prepared for that. I saw professionals supporting each other, congratulating each other, cheering each other on, both in and out of sessions, and having a good time. There were no serious faces, stodgy people walking around. Everybody seemed to be having a wonderful time. The conference at that time hosted a nighttime banquet, and everybody dressed up. And it seemed to me when I walked into that banquet that everybody sparkled. And I love me some sparkle. It was fabulous. I met Ovid Vickers for the first time at that conference, a man whom I consider to be a dear, dear friend, who is the epitome of grace and gentility and scholarship and good humor. He was dancing with Ann Laster, who is all those things in female form. I saw Nellie Pickett dancing, and that's an experience everybody should have. Nellie danced with anyone and everyone simultaneously and with sheer abandon. I saw a famous writer who had spent too much time in the lounge get up to give her banquet speech, mumble the equivalent of about 3 sentences, and sit down and put her head down on the table. I went to a bonfire on the beach and saw a colleague from a 4-year school roll up his pants legs and wander up and down the beach quoting Prufrock, "I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers grow." I was mesmerized by it all, and I wanted to be a part of that. As we drove home that Saturday afternoon, I could not stop talking. I talked and talked and talked, and Retta looked over at Polly and said, "She's been to our first conference. She's not a baby anymore." From that conference on, I attended as regularly as I could, and I can tell you that I benefit from being involved in TYCA much more than TYCA benefits by my presence. Because of TYCA Southeast, I've read short stories in front of my colleagues at open mic readings, the first of which was in Memphis in 1986. My story about a picture of Jesus in a genuine gold-colored aluminum frame with plastic orange blossoms across the bottom, and you plug it in and it lights up, was received warmly by my friends and colleagues. That led to writing articles for the journal. Thad would call me on occasions and ask me if I could do something that he needed done. He called me one time and asked me if I could do 500 words when Eudora Welty died. And I said, no, give me 750 or nothing. And he said, okay, you can have 750. Eventually, my dear friend Faye Barham and I edited 2 editions of Camaraderie, the TYCA Southeast Literary Journal. Because of TYCA Southeast, I drove Eudora Welty in my car, and I had Sherry with her at the Sheraton in Jackson in 1987 when Hans hosted. Nellam was the chair of the program committee, and she very generously let her assistant program committee hang out with the big dogs. I met Sister Thea Bowman, who brought her Holy Child Jesus Children's Choir for our opening pizzazz. The next year, just incidentally, 60 Minutes did a program on Sister Thea, and they came to Hines where she was speaking and filmed in the old Kane Hall. And in the video footage on national television, there I am in Kane Hall dancing as Sister Thea got all the folk up to her feet. It was a wonderful experience, all because of TYCA. At that same conference, I met Will D. Campbell, the preacher without a steeple from Emmett County, Mississippi, who wrote Brother to a Dragonfly, in addition to other works. We got to be great friends with Will, a friendship that lasted over 25 years until his death just a few years ago. I got to introduce Ellen Gilchrist as a special speaker. But the epitome of it all was Miss Eudora. And I was ready for that responsibility. My Lincoln Town car, which Miss Eudora later deemed enormous, was washed, waxed, and ready. Mark Reynolds, Betty Furstenberger, Faye Barham, and Nellan Pickett were scheduled to squeeze into the back seat while Miss Eudora and I sat in the front. And I took it very seriously. That first day, Will Campbell, Sister Thea, Ellen Gilchrist, a whole cadre of Mississippi writers had carried that day. And we ended with a reading that included Son Thomas, the legendary blues singer from the Delta, and Willie Morris and Bill Ferris, who was at the Center for Southern Culture, and eventually the National Endowment for the Humanities. They were all there for that conference. It was a wonderful day. At about 11 or 11:30, Betty and Faye and I were up in our room talking about going to get Miss Eudora the next day for lunch. She was our luncheon guest. And, you know, just we need to get a good night's sleep. You know, we were just all pumped. Well, the phone rang. It was Will Campbell, our new friend, inviting us to come down to his room and have some communion wine, which was his moonshine that he traveled with. He and Tom T. Hall had a still, and he traveled with what he called the recipe. And so he said, y'all come on, you know, you girls come on down and have a drink. And Betty had already taken her eyelashes off, so we weren't going anywhere. But you know, I said, no, we can't come. We got to drive Miss Eudora tomorrow. We got to be up for it. And he said, well, just come on down and have a drink. He said, Willie's down here too, Willie Morris, and I think he's got a little weed. I said, no, we cannot do that. We cannot possibly come down to your room. You know, as I said, we have got to drive Eudora Welty tomorrow. And he persisted, and finally I said, Will, what if I killed Eudora Welty? I would go down in history as the person who was driving doped up and drunk with Eudora Welty in the car. And Will said, she's old. She's had a good life. If she dies, she dies. Well, we did not go down. I drove Miss Eudora, and Mark Reynolds is here to attest to that story. We had a wonderful time, and it was just one of my many adventures with TYCA. Because of TYCA-SE, I've gotten to meet Ann Beatty, Ann Patchett, Lee Smith, Rick Bragg, John Barant, Ron Rash, Silas House today, and many, many others. Last year, I added Beth Ann Finley and Tom Franklin and Jesmond Ward to that list. And wouldn't you know, Beth Ann and Tom brought me moonshine. Because of TYCA, I got to pick up Morgan Freeman at the airport and drive him to our 2005 conference for a panel on film and literature. The Thursday before he won an Academy Award for $1 Million Baby on Sunday. My students were always impressed by the photograph that I had in my office, very prominently displayed, of Faye and Morgan and me. He was sitting very seriously in a chair. We were standing on either side behind him, and my hand was just nonchalantly on his shoulder. One of my students said, do you know Morgan Freeman? I said, yeah. You know, we flew his airplane down to do our conference, and I picked him up. BFFs. Because of TYCA, a presentation I did as a one-time thing, a dramatic monologue on Flannery O'Connor in Savannah, turned into 15 years of performances in a variety of places throughout the South. Next month, Mary Flannery and I will be at this is going to be interesting, at the state DAR meeting in Jackson. And then in April, I'll be at Meridian Community College with Flannery. All because I did a presentation for TYCA. Another presentation that Faye Barham and I did was on Lee Smith and the Family as Place, and I wrote a sense of place piece at the beginning of that about my father's home place, where my dad, up in the area where my daddy's buried. Mississippi Magazine published that piece, which was written for TYCA. So not only is my home place immortalized, but my daddy's funeral is in there, and it's immortalized as well. All because of a presentation that I did at TYCA Southeast. Because of TYCA Southeast, I've danced and danced and danced in 9 of the 10 states in our region. And if West Virginia ever has a conference, I will dance there too. I've loaded into a VW van with 13 people and danced until dawn at Phoenix Hill in Louisville, Kentucky. I've danced in hotel bars and sleazy lounges and been dipped by Ovid Vickers in front of an elegant ice statue at the 25th anniversary in St. Pete. I face danced with Dick Graves, and you can ask me about that later, and been led around the floor with the utmost care and precision by Ben Wiley. I've shagged on the beach in Myrtle Beach. I've do-si-doed at the Virginia Reel in Charlottesville. I danced with Rich Raymond on a riverboat cruise in Jacksonville, Florida, and with assorted partners on a stationary riverboat in Chattanooga. Just recently, I snuggled up to Chuck McDonald in Jackson, Mississippi to Shades of Grey, and I have enjoyed every step. Because of TYCA, I've had hotel security reprimand the group I was with on more than one occasion. The first being a loud and very enthusiastic rendition of Delta Dawn with Faye, Betty, and Nell Ann in Memphis, and those were obviously not music lovers at that point. There have been others, and we've always politely begged forgiveness. Because of TYCA Southeast, an initiative that the Mississippi Community College teachers took in 2005 to have all 15 community colleges host the conference that year, we have TYCAM and TYCAT and TYCAC and assorted other state groups that have gotten their strength and their professionalism and their enthusiasm from TYCA. And because of TYCA Southeast, we're planning the 3rd edition of our state-sponsored textbook for our students, all of the proceeds of which go to TYCAM. Because of TYCA, I have a professional home that nurtures me and supports me and embraces me every bit as much as I nurture and support and embrace it. Because you see, this is my TYCA Southeast. So when you're deciding what ways to serve your profession and in what ways to most benefit your professional life as well as your personal life, what ways to serve yourself, think about service to TYCA Southeast. Agree to run for the REC, for state rep, do a presentation, pay your dues and join the organization whether you're going to the conference or not. The rewards will far outweigh the effort put forth. In Decatur a few years ago when I did my representative to National TYCA Talk, I encouraged other veteran TYCA members to take their colleagues to the conferences, to introduce them, to encourage them to get involved. As I said then, if they ever drink the Kool-Aid, they'll be back. Well, I encourage you to drink the Kool-Aid. Drink it in the interest of TYCA Southeast. And who knows, one day there may be a Doster Award in your future, or a Will Campbell, or a Eudora Welty, or a Morgan Freeman, or hotel security, or some pretty good moonshine in your future if you will just use your gifts to the good. So thank you very much.